Hollow One used to be one of the most powerful decks in the modern format, but with power creep pushing this deck out of the format, it has all but disappeared. That is until MH3 came out with the most insane card, Detective's Phoenix. This is a 3-mana 2/2 with flying and haste that also has bestow for 1 red and collect 6 evidence. In addition, you can cast this card from your graveyard using the bestow ability, giving any of your creatures +2/+2 flying and haste. While exiling 6 CMC worth of stuff from your graveyard is difficult, it is not hard in Hollow One. This in addition to Inti being a great card in this list alongside Orcish Bowmasters with Burning Inquiry, Hollow One is in the best spot it's ever been. So in this video, we're going to be taking Hollow One through a League of Modern, showing you why this might be the best deck right now. Just a friendly reminder before the first match starts to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. We are on the draw and starting hand looks great. We'll go turn 1 Wooded Foothills, we top deck a Flameblade Adept, we'll go Bloodstained Mire, got Shock, and play out our Adept. Then set they Surveil Strike Rich into the yard, and then play Mountain into a Rune's Resolve, exile and Reckless Impulse, and a Manamorphose. We find a Burn Inquiry, we'll cycle our Street Wraith, finding a Blood Crypt, we'll go to combat, attack in for 2, play a Tarn, passing. Opponent starts on a Manamorphose, we will fetch, and play out our Bowmasters. Shooting the opponent for 1, they draw a card, and we'll shoot them again. They fire off a Reckless Impulse, exiling another Impulse, and a Ral, playing out a Bloodstained Mire. Ooh, we top deck another Bowmasters, which I think might be lethal, and yeah, I think the math checks out here, so we'll play out another Bowmasters, shoot the opponent, cast a Burn Inquiry, get a bunch of triggers, and yeah, that's definitely lethal. Wow, what a sweet turn 3 kill. Holy, let's get on to sideboarding. We're bringing in Damping Sphere, 2 Unlicensed Hearse, and 2 Magebane Lizards for 4 Root Wallas and a Detective's Phoenix. Game 2, starting hand looks great. When it goes turn 1 Mountain Strike It Rich, we top deck a Goblin Lore, we will fetch Shock, and go turn 1 Burning Inquiry, and we get to cast out a Hollow One. When it goes land into a Ral, ooh, we find a Magebane Lizard, go to combat, tack in for 4, play out a Burn Inquiry, no land, unfortunate. Alright, well, he's got to pass back and hope we aren't dead. When Fetch Shocks plays out a Periodic Ritual, and they flash back a Strike It Rich, then in response they cast another ritual, flipping their Ral, then cast out a Flage, dealing 3 to our Hollow One, then they escape a Flage, killing our Hollow One, gaining another 3, and we still don't find a land. At this point we're too far behind, so we'll scoop it up and get on to the game 3. We are on the play, and starting hand is a little slow, but definitely will keep it. We'll lead on turn 1 Tarn, turn 1 tap land for the opponent, instead we will Surveil, and we don't need another land. Ooh, we find a Bowmasters, we'll play out our Vault into an Inti, opponent Shocks in a Foundry, playing out a Reckless Impulse, exiling Manamorphose and a Rune's Resolve. Ooh, Damping Sphere, good draw. We will pay 2 Cycling Street Wraith, exiling a Bowmasters, which we will definitely cast out here. Shoot the opponent for 1. We'll go to combat, attacking with Inti, discard our Goblin Lore, pumping Inti, exiling a Hollow One. Oh my. So we will Shock and a Blood Crypt, cast out a Burn Inquiry, trigger Inti again, get some Bowmaster triggers, and we exile a Magebane Lizard. So we will cast out our Hollow One for free and pass the opponent. Opponent plays land into a Ral, and they cast out a Manamorphose. They draw a card, we will shoot them for 1. Then they cast out a Rune's Resolve. They win the flip and decline to flip, exile a Manamorphose and a Strike It Rich. Cast Manamorphose, we will deal 1 to the opponent. Cast out an Impulse, not flipping Ral again, exiling a Rune's Resolve in the land. Then they cast out Manamorphose, we'll shoot the opponent. They cast out a Rune's Resolve, exiling land, Static Prison. Then they cast out a Strike It Rich into another Rune's Resolve, and they're out of mana now. And they scoop it up, so we take down the match. Let's get on to the next one. We are on the draw, and starting hand definitely looks fine. I'll go turn 1 Heath, we draw a Bolt, we'll go Mountain into a Flameblade Adept. In step they Surveil, put another land into the yard. Opponent plays out a Swamp into a Prosperous Innkeeper. We draw a Blood Crypt. We will Shock that in and play out our Inti. Go to combat, attack in, and we'll discard our Phoenix. Opponent plays out a Dryad Arbor, gaining life, into a Birthing Ritual, and they sacrifice their Prosperous Innkeeper, getting another one. We find a Phoenix. We will lead on bolting their Innkeeper. Then we will bolt their Dryad Arbor, play out a fetch land, fetch, shock, play out a Burning Inquiry, exiling a land. We will go to combat, attack in with the team, discard our Root Walla, which we do get to cast for free, which is pretty cool. And then we exile a Goblin Lore, and opponent takes 9. Opponent plays out an Aether Hub into a Guide of Souls, and they play an Ocelot Pride. They go to their end step, they make a 1/1, and then trigger Birthing Ritual, and they sacrifice their Ocelot Pride, getting a Marionette Apprentice. Okay, we draw a Bolt. We will flash back a Detective's Phoenix from our yard, put it on Inti, exiling 6 CMC worth of stuff. Then we will go to combat, attacking with the team, decline Inti's trigger. They block our Root Wall with a Servo, so we'll just let that trade. They go down to 5, we lose a life, and then after combat, we will bolt their, I guess, Marionette Apprentice. Someone plays out a tapped land into an Orcish Bowmasters. They shoot us for 1 and gain 2, attacking with Guide of Souls, and they do put a 2/1/1 counters on it and have it make flying. End step, trigger a ritual. When they sacrifice their Bowmasters, putting in another Married Apprentice. We top deck a Burning Inquiry. That should do it. We'll cast that, get a bunch of triggers. Then we exile a Root Walla. We will escape our Phoenix. And I don't think they have any flyers. Yep, they scoop it up there. Let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out 2 Root Wallas for 2 Pyroclasm. Game 2, starting hand looks great. One goes turn 1 Godless Shrine into a Guide of Souls. Ooh, we find Bolt. We will spend our first turn just bolting this guide. Sage you go from the opponent. We will fetch Shock and play out our Inti. Yep, and they do have a Bowmasters. Someone plays a land into a Birthing Ritual. They sacrifice their army, getting a Young Wolf. Top deck a land. We will go to combat, tack in with our Inti. Discard our Root Walla, get some triggers. Ooh, we do exile a Bowmasters. That's great. Cast out our Blazing Root Walla. Then we will cast out our Bowmasters, trying to take down their Bowmasters. Play out our Blackleaf Cliffs into a Burn Inquiry. Get some triggers. We'll shoot the Young Wolf, shoot the opponent for 2. Exile a card with Inti. I'm just exile Street Wraith, so we'll pass the opponent. I'm gonna place out an Aether Hub into a Marionette Apprentice, getting a 1/1. An opponent triggers Ritual, getting rid of their Young Wolf, putting in a Drannith Magistrate. Another Bowmasters. We will cast out our Goblin Lore. Hope they don't have a Bowmasters. They do not. Trigger Inti. Exile a Street Wraith. We will bestow our Detective's Phoenix onto our Orc Army. Play out our land, fetch, shock, cast out Burning Inquiry, get some triggers, shoot the opponent with everything, exile a Hollow One. Oh yes. Cast out our Hollow One for free. Oh wait, no, Drannith Magistrate. Boo. Go to combat, tack in with Inti and our Orc. Trigger Inti, discard our Goblin Lore, put a trample counter on Inti, and opponent has blocked. They scoop it up, and we'll get on to the next match. We are on the play, and starting hand is a little weird, but definitely a keep. We'll lead on turn 1 Blood Crypt into a Flame Blade Adept. Someone plays out of Xander's Lounge. We top deck another Inti. We'll play our Arena of Glory into an Inti. Go to combat, tack in, and we will not discard. Someone plays out an Island. We draw a Bolt. We will cycle our Street Wraith, triggering Inti and Flame Blade. We exile another Street Wraith, which we cannot cast, so we will go to combat, attack in with the team. And they cast a Galvanic Discharge on our Inti, attack in for 2, play another Inti into a Sculpting Tarn. Instead, they cast Attune the Narrative. On Shocks in the land, playing out a Teferi, bouncing our Inti. Instead, we will Surveil. Oh, and we will definitely put an Ox on top. Play out our Inti, go to combat, attack the Teferi, discard a land, put a counter on our Flame Blade Adept, and exile a card. And we exile land, we'll play that out, passing. Don't cast Attune the Narrative. Then they fetch out a Plains, casting a Wrath of Skies. So on the end step, we'll fire off a Bolted Face. We draw a Goblin Lore, which we will cast, and we find a land and a Burning Inquiry, so we will play with Burning Inquiry out after playing land. Ooh, and we find a Hollow One. Let's go! Cast it out for free. Then we will exert our Arena of Glory, casting out our Ox of Agonis, meaning that it gets haste and a +1/+1 counter on it. We also draw 3. Finding another Hollow One, we'll play that and attack in for 5. Yep, and before we can go to combat, they Galvanic Discharge our Ox. Don't cast out an Omnath into a Surveil land, gaining 4. Okay, we top deck a Bowmasters. We will cast out our Bowmasters, shooting the opponent for 1. Play land, escape our Detective's Phoenix, equipping it to our Orc Army. Go to combat, attack in, which this is for 11. No blocks from the opponent. So after combat, we will Bolt Face. And we take down the first game. Let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out 4 Root Wallas and a Flame Blade Adept for 2 Blood Moon and 4 Thoughtseize. Game 2, starting hand looks great. Opponent goes turn 1 Surveil, keeping the card on top. We will shock in our Blood Crypt and go turn 1 Flame Blade. Fetch land for the opponent. They play out a Wrenn 6, ticking up. We find a mountain. We'll play out our Arena Glory, play our Goblin Lore, pumping our Flame Blade, go to combat, and take down their Wrenn. Opponent plays out a Windswept Heath. We top deck another Inti. We'll fire off a Thoughtseize. Wow, and they have a hand here. And we're going to take one of the One Rings, play out a land, cast out our Inti, go to combat, tack in with our Flame Blade, and we will not discard. And on our end step, they do Flash and Endurance, putting our Yard into our deck. Opponent shocks in the land, playing out a One Ring. Find a Street Wraith, we will cycle. We exile a Bolt, find a Thoughtseize. We will go to combat, attacking with our Flame Blade Adept, discarding Blood Crypt, putting a counter on our Flame Blade, exiling a card, finding another Bolt, interesting. So we will try and double bolt the Endurance, then play out our Mountain and pass the opponent. Opponent draws 2, goes Plains, pass, top deck a Burning Inquiry, we'll fire off a Thoughtseize. They fire off a Discharge on our Inti, then evoke out a Solitude, pitching another Solitude, and wow, we only see lands in their hand. So we will cast out Inti into a Detective's Phoenix bestowed onto it, and attack in for 4, and we will not discard. Opponent's down to 6, draws 3, then they play out an Omnath. They have a fetch land, gaining 4, then they fetch immediately, getting 4 more mana, and fire off a Galvanic Discharge on our NT, sadly. Firing off a Tune the Narrative into a 6. Pretty good turn for the opponent. Ooh, we find a Bowmasters, so we will cast that out, shoot the opponent, cast a Burn Inquiry, shoot the opponent again, and go to combat, attacking with our Detective's Phoenix. Oh wait, reach! 6 has reach! What the heck? Oh my, whatever. Opponent falls down to 2, then cast a Discharge on our Bowmasters. Then they play out Misty, gaining 4, drawing 4. They cast out another One Ring. Then they evoke out a Solitude, taking out our army, we gain 4, then attack in for 6. We draw a land, play that out, cast our Ox of Agonis, and we find a Burn Inquiry 2 lands, so cast Burn Inquiry. We do find a Bowmasters, that's like the best possible. Opponent fetches, gaining 4, into another fetch land, gaining 4 mana. They pick up an island, dealing 4 to us. Cast out a Leyline Binding, taken out of Ox. Then cast out a Wrenn 6, pinging us for 1. Draw a card with the One Ring, which I should have cast out Bowmasters in response. Oopsies. Go to combat, attack us, milling with 6. We will fetch out a mountain and cast Bowmasters in combat. And in response, they cast a Dress Down from the yard. And at this point, we're too far behind, so we will scoop it up and get on to game 3. Game 3, starting hand looks great. We'll keep it. We'll go turn 1, Spymaster's Vault. Opponent goes turn 1, Surveil Land, bending it to Fairy. We draw a land. We'll play Black Leafless into an NT. Opponent fetches out a Forest into a Wrenn 6, taking up on their Misty. Ooh, we find a Bowmasters. We'll cycle Street Wraith, triggering NT. Excellent a Thoughtseize. We will definitely fire that off, and we'll take their One Ring. Go to combat, attack with our NT, discard our Detective's Phoenix, and we do exile a land. That's pretty good. Wrenn takes 3. We will shock in our Blood Crypt and fire off a Bowmasters, finishing off the Wrenn. Tap land for the opponent. We draw a Bloodstained Mire. We will lead on a Goblin Lore, and we end up exiling an Oakish Bowmasters off of that trigger. So we will shock in a Blood Crypt, cast out our Bowmasters, shoot the opponent for 1. Go to combat. They fire off a Leyline Binding, taking out our NT, and we'll attack in with the Bowmasters. Opponent fetches, playing out an Omnath. They draw 2, and we'll shoot both of them at their face. Ooh, Burning Inquiry, so good. We'll fire that off. Triggers. Wow, we got literally nothing. That's great. And opponent scoops it up there. Let's get on to the next match. We are on the draw, and starting hand is a little slow, but we'll keep it. Opponent goes turn 1, Steam Vents into a Preordain. We top deck a Burn Inquiry. We'll play out our Surveil Land, look at our top, and we'll keep a Bolt. Opponent plays out a Misty into another Preordain. We draw a Bolt. We'll play Bloodstained Mire, pass. Opponent shocks into Steam Vents. We will fetch Shock and fire off a Bowmasters on the end step and shoot the opponent for 1. They fire off a Discharge on our Bowmasters. We draw another Hollow One. We will fire off our Goblin Lore, which meets a counter spell, and then we will play out our land tapped, go to combat, attack in for 1. Opponent plays out a Delta. We top deck an NT. We will play that out, go to combat, attack in with our Orc, and before we can go to attacks, they cast a Snapcaster Mage, flashing back a Discharge, taking out our NT. So we'll fire off our Burn Inquiry, and we do get to keep a Hollow One, so we will cast it out for free and pass the opponent. Opponent cast a Flame of Anor, killing our Hollow One, drawing 2, and then cast out a Murktide Region. Top deck a Goblin Lore. We will cast that out, and we will cast out a Root Walla, passing to the opponent. Opponent goes to combat, attacks in for 8, then plays out a Tune the Narrative, drawing a card, into another Tune the Narrative, into a Preordain. We top deck a land. We will flash back our Phoenix on our Orc army, and we'll cast another Phoenix from our yard, putting on the Root Walla, play out our land, go to combat, attacking with the team. And opponent's down to 5. And on their upkeep, we will go to Bolt them, which meets a Force of Negation. So I guess we have to bolt their Snapcaster Mage so we don't die here. And it looks like they have another Murktide Region here. So we'll scoop it up and get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out 4 Root Wallas and 2 Adepts for 4 Thoughtseize and 2 Unlicensers. Game 2, starting hand looks great. We'll lead on turn 1 Tarn. Opponent shocks to Steam Vents and step will Surveil, and we'll bin a land. Top deck another Inquiry, play out Mountain, pass. Opponent plays out a land into a Tameo. So in step, we will fire off a Bowmasters. Yep, that meets a Spell Snare. That's okay. Top deck an NT, shock on our Blood Crypt, flash in our Bowmasters, shoot the Tameo for 1, fire off an Inquiry. Oh, and wait, does Tameo flip before I get to... Oh, I think I messed up. Yep, well, whatever. Tameo gets to flip. I didn't realize that. Oopsies. Opponent ticks up with Tameo, plays out a land. We top deck another NT. We will cast that out. Go to combat. Opponent casts a Discharge on our NT. We will attack Tameo for 2, and then fire off a Bolt on her, which meets a Force of Negation. So fine trade. And step they Surveil, cast, and fire in the yard. Tick up with their Tameo, and then play another Tameo. We draw a land. We will play out our NT. Go to combat. Attack their Tameo. Trigger NT. We'll discard our Mountain. Put a +1 counter on our Orc. Exile a Hollow One, and no blocks from the opponent. And we just have the pass back here. Opponent ticks up with Tameo. We draw another land. Again, attack Tameo. Discard our Blood Crypt. Put a counter on our Orc. Exiling a Thoughtseize. Not great. And opponent does block here. Fire off a Thoughtseize and take a counterspell. Opponent takes up Tameo and scoops it up. Wow. So we'll get on to game 3. Game 3, hand is a little slow, but looks fine. Opponent goes turn 1 Delta. We top deck a Detective's Phoenix. We'll play Bloodstained Mire. Opponent plays out a land into Tameo. And in step, we will Surveil, and Unlicensed Hearse seems pretty good. We will shock it in a Blood Crypt and play out a Hearse. Yep, that meets a Spell Snare. Opponent goes land, attacks into Tameo, makes a clue. Draw a Bowmasters. We will play out our land tapped and pass the opponent. Misty and attacking for the opponent. In step, we'll flash into Bowmasters, and we'll shoot the opponent for 1. They fire off a Discharge, taking our Bowmasters. We draw a land. We will fire off our Inti. An opponent fetch shocks, casting a Snap, getting a Spell Snare out of the yard, and a Spell Snare Inti. Then we will play land and cast out a Goblin War. Go to combat and attack in for 1. Opponent cracks a clue, goes to combat, attacks in with the team. Then they crack another clue, flipping their Tameo, and they tick up. We draw a land. We will cast out a Goblin War. We have a bunch of lands here, so we'll cast out a Detective's Phoenix on our Orc Army into another one. Go to combat, take out the Tameo, and we'll hold our lands here. Opponent plays out a land into another Tameo, cracks a clue, and attacks in for 2. We draw a Street Wraith. We will cycle, finding a Bolt. Go to combat, attack in, and we'll play our Mountain. It goes to combat, attacks in. They crack their clue. Yeah, that's fine. And then they play a land out tapped. Draw another Bolt. We'll go to combat, attack in, and opponent's down to 2. Opponent goes to combat, attacks in for 2. They fire off a Preordain. We find a Hollow one. We will go to combat, attack in with our Orc. They go to kill our Orc and draw 2. So I guess we fire off a Bolt now, which means a counter spell. That's fine. And then we'll fire off another Bolt, and we take it down. Wow, what a great game for us. Let's get on to the next match. We are on the play, and starting hand is a little weak, but we'll definitely keep it. We'll lead on turn 1 Mire. It goes turn 1 Mire. In step, we will Surveil, and Goblin Lore looks great here. We draw our Goblin Lore. We'll play out our Vault and fire off our Goblin Lore. We discard a Bolt, a Lore, and a land. Find a Street Wraith. We'll cycle that now and find another Lore. And on our end step, they Surveil as well, putting a land in the yard. Whoa, a Saga for the opponent, and they play out a Haywire Mite into a Nethergoyf. Ooh, we draw a Hollow one. Okay. We will play out our Bowmasters, take out their Haywire Mite, play land, fire off a Burn Inquiry. Oh my, we get Madness and 3 more triggers. We'll shoot the opponent for 3. It looks like we're up against a Jund deck here. Cast out our Root Wallow for free, and cast out Hollow one. That was a sweet turn. I'll cast out another Goyf. Okay, land for us. We will play out our land and cast out a Goblin Lore. And in response to that, they do bolt our Bowmasters. Okay, we draw a Flame-Bladed Adept and a Bolt. We will play out our Adept, go to combat, attack in with our Orc. Yep, and they block with their Goyf. That's fine. Then we will finish it off with a Bolt. Opponent floats a mana off Saga, finding a Shadow Spear. They equip their Goyf with the Shadow Spear, play out a Verdant. Wow, attacking for 7. It's a lot of damage. And they bolt our Flame-Bladed Adept. We draw a land. We'll play out our Mountain, cast our Ox from the yard. Ew, that was not good. Guess we'll play out our Root Wallow and pass the opponent. Attacks them with their Goyf, and we will go to block. And we do get to remove the Goyf, but opponent is up at the 30. And then they play a 6. Ooh, we find a Bowmasters. That's a huge draw. We'll go to combat, attack the opponent. No blocks from them. We will flash out our Bowmasters, shooting the opponent for 1. Shocking our Blood Crypt. Cast our Ox of Agonis out of their yard. And we find a Flame-Blade Adept and a Goblin Lore. So we'll play out our Flame-Blade Adept and pass the opponent. Opponent equips Shadow Spear to 6. Then they play out a Saga. Wow, they do attack here. Milling 3 missing, and we'll trade off our Ox for the 6. Ooh, they have a Bowmasters of their own. That's so good. Taking out our Bowmasters. We find a Street Wraith. We will go to combat, attacking with the team. Okay, they trade our Blazing Root Wall for an army. That's good for us. Guess we will try and connive here on our Flame-Bladed Adept. Oh no, it's only getting worse. Our hand's so bad. Guess we'll get rid of a Goblin Lore and a Scalding Tarn. Yeah, and they're shooting down our creatures. Not good. And we will play out our Inti, cycle our Street Wraith, hopefully find a Bolt here. We find a Phoenix into another Inti. We will cast out our Hollow one and bestow our Phoenix onto our Inti. Nothing from the opponent. Oh, we find a Bowmasters. Okay, that's a huge draw. We will play out our Bowmasters, taking out their Bowmasters. Then we will connive on our Inti, discarding a land, triggering Inti and Flame-Bladed Adept, exiling an Arena of Glory, which we will play out. Then we will go to combat, attacking with Inti, discarding Inti, and we'll also attack on Flame-Bladed Adept. They make a construct, discard Inti, put a counter on our Adept, and we exile a Blazing Root Wallow, and they double block our Flame-Bladed Adept. That's fine with me. And after combat, we'll escape out our Ox again, refilling our hand, and we'll cast out a Root Wallow here. Opponent floats mana of Saga, finding a Spell Bomb, plays out a 6, and then plays out a Goyf, discarding a land. Okay, we find a land. We will exert our Arena of Glory, play out our Flame-Bladed Adept, giving it haste, fire off a Bolt on the 6, then play out a Burn Inquiry. We get a few triggers here. We will shoot the Wrenn for 1, shoot the opponent opponent for 2, get some Flame Blade triggers and an Inti trigger, and we exile another Inti. Then we will use our Spiremaster Vault on our Inti here, conniving 1, discard another Inti, triggering Inti again, and we exile a land. We will play that out, activate our Root Wall with our 1 floating mana, go to combat, and I think math's for blockers here. Let's hope that we have lethal. We will trigger Inti, discarding our land, put a counter on our Inti, get some more triggers, exile another land. Yep, and no blocks from the opponent, and this is way more than lethal. Getting down to -8, so let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out 4 Root Walls for 2 Hearse and 2 Blood Moon. Game 2, starting hand doesn't have black, but Unlicensed Hearse seems really good in this matchup, so we'll keep it. When it goes turn 1 Verdant, we draw another mountain. We'll play out our mountain into an Adept. Opponent fetch shocks on our end step and pushes our Adept. Opponent shocks in a Overgrown Tomb, plays out a Written 6, ticking up. They're also on a Mold of 5 this game, so that's really important for them. Top deck an Ox, we'll play out our Arena of Glory into an Unlicensed Hearse. Land for the opponent, and they pick up their Gigantha, then take up with Rin. Oh, we find a black source, we're so good. We will play out our Blood Crypt, cast a Bowmasters, shoot the Rin for 1, cast out a Burn Inquiry, shoot the Rin some more, then we animate Unlicensed Hearse, and we get to finish Rin off. Opponent plays out a Fetch land, surveilling with their Theater, putting a land into the yard, then they cast out a Nile Spellbomb. Yep, and they use it right away, getting rid of our Detective's Phoenix. Oh wait, that triggers Bowmaster though. We get to shoot the opponent for 1, then they run out an EE for 0. We'll go to combat, attack in. We also drew a Hollow One, kind of useless at this point. They bolt our Bowmasters. They take 5, going down to 8. We will play out our Mire, and we'll actually surveil now in case there's a 1-drop we want on top. Blood Moon, yeah, that seems pretty good. They find a forest, so we will activate Hearse, gain rid of their lands, then cycle our Hollowed One. We draw another Hollow One. We'll play out our land, exert Arena of Glory, and then cast out an Ox. Not great draws. We'll cycle our Street Wraith now in case we find a Hollow One. Find a Bowmasters, that's really good actually. Then we'll go to combat, attacking with the team. They pop their EE, getting rid of our Orc, and they're down to 4. Opponent goes land into a Goyf, into a Shadow Sphere. That's really good for them actually. But sadly, I do think Bowmasters plus Inquiry is going to get it for us. They equip up the Goyf. We'll exile their 2 Written 6s. We draw a Street Wraith. We will cast out our Bowmasters, shoot the opponent for 1, and then fire off a Burn Inquiry, and that should be our 5-0 here. And opponent scoops it up 5-0. Has never felt so good with Hollow One. Let's go. I do want to give a shout out to our last opponent. They were really cool in the chat, and they're fans, so I appreciate you playing with me. But anyways, this deck was super sweet. I love getting to play with Hollow One. Detective's Phoenix was absolutely busted. I know that Bowmasters plus Burn Inquiry is nothing new, but Phoenix felt insanely powerful in this list, alongside Inti, which I haven't played with this deck in a while. I do think there are some cards that I wasn't a huge fan of. Blazing Root Walla, I ended up siding out quite often. I just think it's kind of underwhelming. It's more of like a win more card when you're kind of firing off Goblin Lures and Burn Inquiries with Bowmasters and Phoenix. There's like so many better things to be doing than Root Wall in my opinion. But as for the main deck, that's the only card I would probably get rid of and maybe add another Ox. Ox was extremely powerful throughout the league, and I don't know exactly what else I would be adding. And as for the sideboard, I mean, looked great. I don't think there was any card that I was disappointed with. Abraid's a little weak in my opinion. You could be playing a little bit better mass like Artifact Removal, maybe Meltdown. But obviously we went 5-0, so we can't complain. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.